evening, Chicago, family and friends. This is Charles Patton, your People's Counselor. We are representing Tacts, the Association of Clinical Trial Services, sitting in for your favorite community epidemiologist, Sister Simpson. Today we are going to continue our discussion on health equity, and we also want to talk a little bit about mental health. We know that has been a very big issue that's been kind of played over the last few years. And once again, I also want to talk about substance abuse, because we know that there's a direct link or an overlap between health equities, mental health, and substance abuse. So we are going to try to tie those up and give you some information that will hopefully get you to thinking about ways you can access the services and resources that you need, because that's what we do. So once again, we are Tacts, the Association of Clinical Trial Services, and we are talking about health equities. And we'll be continuing this discussion over the next few shows so that we can really try to hone in on what this means for you. We know that when we talk about what's going on with the healthcare industry today, and we know that the Affordable Care Act has been somewhat dismantled given the current administration. I personally, as I say, I'm a counselor, substance abuse counselor, and some of my personal experiences has been somewhat of a nightmare in working with people to try to make sure that they get the services that they need. We have been, what can I say, kind of dealing with the bureaucracy, to keep it simple, and trying to get the actual amount of time that people need to address their issues. You know, we have a 7-day detox program. Now, if anybody's familiar with how these services work, if you go to a hospital for a detox program, you'll get 3 days. I don't care where you go, they're going to give you 3 days. And if we're in the midst of an opiate epidemic, and we know that people are using multiple substances, not to mention the mental health component, right? Now, just think about your family member or a loved one or a community member who is out there struggling with these particular issues, and you send them into the hospital thinking they're going to get what they need. They come out in 3 days, and physiologically, they're still sick. Now, we ain't even talking about the psychological aspect, because if anybody's familiar with the nature of addiction and the physiology of that, we know that it takes at least 120 days for you to get to what we call that post-acute withdrawal phase, right? And basically what that means is that, okay, if you stop using for 20 days, you feel okay. And you feel okay around 60 days. Then around that 90th day, we start dealing with the psychological components of addiction. And that's when the cravings and the urges and all the other things kick in. So what's happening is that we see a lot of recidivism of people coming into treatment. Now, mind you, it's hard to get an accurate diagnosis if a person is inebriated and under the influence of alcohol for sake of something that's socially acceptable. But we know that opiates, including the narcos, the oxycontins, the Vicodins, and of course the heroin, that's a whole different ball game, right? So if we know that if your body is physiologically still sick, but you done went through a process that then kind of gave you what we call a Band-Aid approach, which is what this healthcare system has been doing over the last couple of centuries, if you will, then we know that around that 90th day or that 120th day, then you start dealing with all of this other stuff, right? Then, of course, if you do have a mental illness that has been either misdiagnosed or not diagnosed, then you start to experience that symptomatology, meaning you may start to experience some of the bipolar symptoms, or you may experience some of the schizophrenic symptoms, or you may experience some of the post-acute withdrawal or the PTSD, post-traumatic stress. Because we know for a lot of us, particularly people of color, growing up in some of the neighborhoods that we live in, we experience or we see a lot of things. If you've been paying any attention to the news, we know that there's been a lot of things going on in our communities that can traumatize people. And not even if you're not a victim of the actual event, just witnessing those events, in your neighborhood or across the street, can cause some type of psychological impact. So once again, we need to start to make sure that we push for health equities and start to make sure that things line up with our politicians. We're getting ready to go into an election, all right? We got a mayoral election coming up. We got a gubernatorial election coming up. So we need to really start talking about who we want to represent our interests. Who is going to make sure that we as constituents, members of these communities, I think we got 77 community areas in the city of Chicago, and living in these particular areas, we have representation. So we need to make sure that whoever we elect to represent us is going to work on getting our best interests. Okay? So once again, we need to start to talk about this particular paradigm of, with diversity comes a cure. Increase diversity in clinical trials. Okay, now that's a mouthful, right? But when you think about diversity, all right, that means that gives us not just a Band-Aid approach that I talked about earlier, but also just kind of making sure that we can broaden the spectrum, make sure that what works for me may not necessarily work for you. And I've had some personal experiences where I had to work with my physician, and he was prescribing medications that they knew worked for other people, but it didn't work for me. So I had to make sure that I had that conversation so that I can get what was working for me. So that's part of the diversity. Now, clinical trials. We are the Association of Clinical Trial Services. And please, if you got any questions or if you got a comment, you can call us at 312-738-1060, right? Because I would like to include you in this discussion. But at any rate, when we talk about clinical trials, now, just think about this. Tylenol is one of the best-selling pain medications known to man. Who you think they tried that on before they put it on the market? Because for a lot of us, particularly people of color, we can't take it, right? So what I'm getting at is that if we are going to get the most effective health care, then we're going to have to get involved in the process, not only from the community level, but even at the clinical trial level, so that we can start to identify things that work specifically for us. Okay, now I'm not trying to put any other category, any other group of people on the spotlight. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that people of color, particularly of African descent, get involved in a process that will maximize your health. Okay? Because if we don't do it, then who will? Okay? So with the next slide, we're going to talk about diversity and what it really means when you talk about health equity. So with that being said, we are going to transition to our favorite epidemiologist so she can give you all a breakdown of what this really means. See, she know how to crunch the numbers. I'm just the people's counselor. So with that being said, we're going to transition.
Well, thank you, Mr. Patton. I appreciate you explaining health equity. You all can see the difference between equality and equity. And equality is not the same as equity. But we always go over this. We always say what we want in and how we want it to be for our people. Good evening, everyone. Again, your favorite epidemiologist, community epidemiologist, I should say. I am Sister Yan. We want to thank our people's counselor, giving it up for Mr. Charles Patton sitting in. I'm rushing, making it here. But again, we are Tacts, the Association of Clinical Trial Services. What we want to do with you, though, is give you the best possible insights to different health ailments that come across. Now, this is a live show, so if you are watching this live, please call us at 312-738-1060 and you can talk to me live on the air. But it is recorded and it does go to our YouTube or KNTV YouTube channel, and you can still watch us over and over and over again. So we are imploring you to utilize KNTV as a medium for social and understandings of different topics, and of course social media is there with YouTube usage, and you can still watch us on the KNTV television show. So if you have cable and you're able to access the KNTV network, then you can still see us there. So as you've been hearing about health equity, we've actually we do this on every single show where we're making sure that you understand this, because the reason is we look at this triangle and we think about where do we fit. And as you see, health equity always is in the middle. And we're trying to talk about policies, we're talking about institutions and social and changes within institutions, and of course realistically we're talking about the community and what it is that you can do. So I know you're like, we see these slides every single time you do this, but what is repetition? The mother of retention. More I repeat it, the more you retain it, and hopefully the more we use it. So that is why we show you that. Just so in case you didn't know, I got to give a little bit of a shout out, because there is something going on with this month. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Did everybody know that? Yay! And one of the, as breast cancer champions, some of us who have been part of some of the walks, the talks, the discussions all around breast cancer. I'm not going to do any epidemiology or any numbers for breast cancer, because I think that a lot of the organizations already do that. What I just want to bring up is that this is a condition that people can deal with. Mammography is important. Getting your mammograms, they can, if you do not have insurance to pay for it, you can find some places that would allow you to get it done for free. I got mine done for the year, and yay, good results. So I encourage all people, and if you're a male and think that it's an issue for you, or even if you're not sure, you too can get a mammography done to make sure there should not be any lumps in your little bumps, okay? So men and women have to think about breast cancer as it relates to their health and their outcome, and definitely your family members. So October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and again, we just wanted you to know that as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, that the fight is harder, that solutions are happening, but be a champion. And that's the one thing we want you to know, is we want you to be a champion for people that are impacted or affected with breast cancer. So we need your help in that arena. Moving forward, besides that, we also have a topic that we really wanted to deal with today. Actually, I have two things that I wanted to go through, but I really want to deal with something that came up, and I want you all to recognize that there's going to be a training that's going to be happening real soon around mental health. But before we get into that, I want you to see this particular site here. This is a website that I was able to garner from that talks about mental health first aid. Now here you can see, get involved, make a difference. There are courses, but the real aspect that I want you all to know is mental health first aid is a burgeoning new area concerned with mental health treatment. More importantly, I'm going to use the word intervention, right? And hopefully prevention. We really want prevention, but sometimes it lies in the intervention. As in an episode, something happens, and you as the first aid responder intervenes. That's what I mean by intervention. And hopefully mitigate, squash, squell, contain the situation. So, what's going on? Why is this important? Because we're dealing with a lot of people who have not been properly diagnosed, have not been treated, don't even know the signs and symptoms, have not seen a professional to talk about their mental illnesses. We say mental health, but it's not that it's healthy. It's actually a challenge. I want us to think about that. I see I have a caller to us today, to Tacts, to Sister Yah. What can I do for you, caller?
Yes, and thanks for taking the call. And you know what? How can I say this? Mental illness is a very serious thing. I think two other things. I remember how you advocated the HIV, the virus, and things like that.
You've called before. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you've been on quite some time. But listen to me. We have other issues that keep on stemming, that's coming up like a bud. A lot of people have mental illness.
You know what, caller, can I ask you, and thank you for calling in. I would like to know from your perspective, if you can please share. Do you think mental illness is new, or do you think that we're giving it like a magnifying glass? If that makes sense to you. So in other words, are people becoming more mentally ill, or is it we are paying attention more to mental illness? What do you think?
You know what my goal with that? This has been going on for years, But back in the day, parents had the insurance and they treated people. They had many facilities that treated that. Then all of a sudden, the largest facility that's treating mental illness is the Cook County Jail.
Ooh.
There's more people locked up with mental illness.
Yes, sir.
But there are many. If you think of land, just go right through the city. You see people talking. You see people walking, no shoes on and things of that nature. They can't get to no medication.
So, caller, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's because of the time. But I think you are really hitting some of the very hard topics we need to talk about. One, you very appropriately talked about at one point there was a time where people could get the needed services from places like you said, Cook County, or more importantly, Cook County Hospital, hopefully not the jail.
No. I said now the county is holding a lot of people that's locked up, and they are in the county. But there's a lot of people cannot get medication. They cannot see.
So they're not getting appropriate treatment, appropriate services. That at one time we may have seen more influence to go that right. You know what? I come from the school of the Bobby Wright. You know, we know Dr. Bobby Wright was a psychologist.
Yes,
the institution is named the Bobby Wright Mental Health Center. And he's like, you know, one of the things that I garnered from him in my rites of passage, I actually had to read his book about psychopathic racial identities. And he talks about the fact that, you know, we're all psychotic in some way or fashion because of racism. But more importantly, the way to have dealt with it was through your behavior change implemented over time, not your intellect. And I don't think we've quite gotten around to the behavior changes. But thank you, caller. I appreciate you putting it up there.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
There's people out here is showing it, and they make a joke out of it. Kanye West.
Well, we don't.
There's many people that make jokes about it. I don't see anything that's so funny about it if you need help. And if you think, years ago, they always say you're 99 and 9/10 sane. You got 10% little insanity in you. It grows. Time grows. We living in different times, different era. So that goes down. When you need help, search help. But that's the problem. people who need help don't think they need it. The one who suggests the help, they the one that think they need the help. It's a crazy world. You're a very smart young woman. Bobby Wright book is very good. That just as long as you could understand. See, comprehension is the key to anything. People don't comprehend things. They don't search words or understanding what you need to know. And if you keep on studying, you and we still got you. So you're going to interpret a lot of this.
Yes, I am. And thank you again, Carl. I appreciate it. In fact, if I can, I'd like to show you a little bit about what you were referring to when you said comprehension. Here, this particular, the mental health facility, mental health first aid for the United States. Here I have at the bottom, you can see, if you typed in mentalhealthfirstaid.org, you would get the one for the United States. This organization is being pushed. It's on the web. That's why I gave you the source. And they have courses that they want you to look at mental first aid just like you would CPR. They're looking at getting more people. They have a newsletter. They have some things going on very quickly. I also want to show you that there is a book that's being promoted as one of the books that you can get, as well as think about taking the actual class. Again, I know that if you didn't get the website, it's just the word itself. And guess what, people? I want you to know that there is a class being promoted by our National Women's Veterans, who I am happen to be a veteran. That class is going to be this weekend, Saturday, October 20th. It's free. If you want more information about this class, you really should get in touch with Miss Rochelle. Her number is on this flyer, 872-731-2150. If you really can't remember that, you have everything you can do. You can call me and I'll make sure to get that for you. I'm promoting this not because she told me to, but because I'm in the class. I'm already registered for it. And even though I'm an epidemiologist and I specialize in infectious diseases, guess what, people? I am willing to, I'm not going to say jump ships, but to expand my repertoire. Now I'm going to pass infectious diseases, get a little bit more into behavior science, and deal with this concept of mental capacity, mental coping, because I don't even like saying mental illness, because an illness denotes as though, would you be cured from it? And I don't think mental states is something you can say you're cured from. It's just my own opinion on that. Maybe we should have a discussion. But I do say mental, behavioral is connected, and it is something that you apply and work on, which is why I brought up Bobby Wright, because his book denotes that it is an application over time that helps you to get through some of the things that you need to get through behaviorally. And again, I just wanted you all to see that this particular women's veterans group is having this free course on this topic alone, and they're being supported by the Sakoma Center. So I will be there this Saturday. Hopefully you can join us. If you want more information, again, like I said, you can call me directly and I'll bring that to you. So I'm going to have to wrap up real soon, but one of the things we want to leave you with again is just making sure you know that we are here with you, Tacts, the Association of Clinical Trial Services. But I definitely want you to know that we're dealing with a lot of topics. I know you heard me say Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but the reason that we feel that this was the important topic for this particular show today is because of, as you heard the caller mention, people like those particular, I won't say the person's name because I don't give that person any credence, but however, and I don't think he's a genius at all, but that's my opinion. My point being is that it's being displayed on every facet of our lives. We are mentally going through it, and from the ilk I come from, that also has to do with your spiritual system. And spirituality is not something that is hocus pocus. Spirituality is how you will operate as a spiritual being having a human experience. All right, I have to wrap up again. I want you to know this is Tacts, the Association of Clinical Trial Services, your favorite community epidemiologist, Sister Yai. And again, I want to thank Mr. Charles Patton, our people's counselor, for hanging in there and for being there, not hanging, but giving it to you with the right information. We wanted you to know that we definitely care about our community. We care about the people that are out there, and more importantly, we care about ourselves and our families. And we hope that you will do the same. Again, thanking CAN TV for allowing us as a non-for-profit organization to come and present to you the best that we have and all that we can give. And again, we hope to see you very soon. So, look up your mental health awareness, as I was stating earlier, where you can do free mental health first aid training. I am saying wrap that up. And thank you so much for tuning in to our CAN TV live show.